Today we want to talk to you about ghost stories. Ooh. So Kanish, do you want to kick this off?
Sure. You told me about your ghost stories you've experienced.
Yeah, so I haven't had a ton of experiences myself, although I've had a lot of paranormal experiences. But I think the more you actually look into it, the more you realize that a lot of people have paranormal experiences. So I think it's kind of interesting that it's considered outside of the normal when I think actually having paranormal experiences is becoming more and more normal. So really, what does that even mean? But I have interacted with people. And one time I met this Native American woman. She was actually from Alaska, and she was traveling around talking to different communities, and she was in our community. And it came up somehow when we were talking with her. We had a couple of events with her, lunch and some other stuff. And she told us a couple of stories about quote unquote ghosts, although I don't know if she would call them ghosts, more like spirits. And one of the stories was about this little girl who had died. And basically, this woman, she went around helping people. So people knew about her, and they would ask her if something was going on. They would ask for her help. So this family, they knew they had a spirit in the house, a ghost, because a lot of weird things were happening. They could hear noises at night and stuff like that. Cupboards opened sometimes. So she came in to help them, and she went into this room where they said there was a lot of activity, and she saw a little girl. And it was kind of interesting the way she talked about them and to them, because you don't really hear that in stories sometimes. Like, she was pretty down to earth, and she was pretty rooted in like common sense, which is something I really actually respect a lot about the Native Americans. Like, even though they do believe in what people call the quote unquote paranormal world, they don't really see it that way. They actually see it as a normal world in which the spirits are a part of our world, like ancestors and spirits are intertwined with the world we live in. So they don't view it in sort of like a woozy foo-foo shishi way. They're very common sense, down to earth about it, which I always found kind of interesting. So anyway, grandmother Wintoon saw this little girl, and she said, what are you doing here? Don't you know that you're not supposed to be here, that you don't belong here? And the little girl told her that she couldn't cross over because of her mother's tears. And then she told grandmother that when she passed away, that she heard her mother crying. Like, she could hear the sound of her mother's crying, and she could feel her mother's pain. And so she turned around and she saw something sparkled, or something that looked like her mother's tears. And it ended up being like these crystal things that was on this woman's dresser or something like that. And she had somehow gotten stuck. And so grandmother told her, well, okay, well, what's your favorite food? And she told her, and I don't know, she didn't really tell us what the food was, but she then said, okay, well, you don't belong here and you have to cross over. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to make your favorite food. And when you smell the food, just follow the scent and it will take you where you belong. So she did. She made her favorite food, and the little girl somehow was able to cross over because the family never had a problem with it again. So that was one story by grandmother Wintoon. And I have another story, but why don't you tell a story, Kanish, and I'll tell mine after you, the other one after you.
Sure. So, well, I have actually, before I say my story, I think I have a couple of questions about your story.
Oh, sure.
So this person was from Alaska.
Yes.
like she was an Alaskan American Indian?
I
Uh,
think she was part of the Inuit tribe, but I don't remember for sure.
And
Um,
what was she doing? What was she doing in where you live?
well, I was actually part of this Native American community where I live, the Lakota. They were basically the Lakota tribe. And so when I say I was part of the community, I want to say that I was invited to be part of the community through a sweat lodge ceremony. And every Sunday, they would have a sweat lodge ceremony and it changed locations. And one thing that I really always like about the Lakota tribe, because I've since done other things with them, is they're, for the most part, I've found them to be very welcoming to all different types of people. And so I think they're very generous that way, and where they, at least the people that I've met in my own community, I understand things can be different in other communities, but the people that I've met in my community, they have this mentality like everyone's welcome under the sacred tree. And so, and that they feel like, despite the past, despite the past, they feel like, if their culture and their ceremony can help people, then that's something that they feel like there is their responsibility, and they have an open heart to people of all different backgrounds and all different cultures. And I think that's also actually extraordinary when you think about everything that's happened in America to Native Americans, that this one tribe, and I'm not, I mean, it's probably true that other tribes also are welcoming. I'm just saying I've had experience with the Lakota tribe, so that's the one I know about, they have always been very generous. And so it happened that I was a part of that community, and that this elder from Alaska came in town through the Lakota people. And then I had the opportunity to talk with her and to learn from her, really. And she was a very extraordinary woman, actually. And so that was just a story that she told us that stuck in my mind about the topic of ghosts, or what a lot of people think are ghosts. But I do think the Native Americans have a really different, really positive perspective about it, in that they don't really see them as ghosts. They see them as spirits. And they also, like, they don't think they belong here, like if a spirit is trapped and they no longer have their body, that really she felt like it was her responsibility to help the spirit cross over. So anyway, that was one story. What about you? Do you have any
Yeah,
stories?
yeah. So why do they believe that it's her? Why do you believe it was her responsibility?
Well, I think that she was asked to help the family, because when you have a quote unquote ghost, it's kind of scary, I think. Like, a lot of things happen and that are unexplainable. You don't really, a lot of people, like, they don't really know what's going on, and it can be a little scary. And so they asked her to help them. And she's what they call a medicine person, and a medicine person, at least my understanding of it, is that the the Native Americans, at least this tribe, believe that um, that when you have like a problem or a wound, that you need medicine for it. So a medicine person has the medicine to help you. So they kind of like, and a medicine can be like a spiritual medicine, the medicine can be anything that helps a person heal, not just like physical medicine, although I realize some medicine people do have like herbs and different tinctures and different things like that. But my experience has been kind of like the spiritual healing. But anyway, yeah, so she kind of like she is, I guess you would call it gifted. Um, she has had the ability to see spirits from an early age, and so when that happens to you in the Lakota tribe, they think that it's your medicine, that the creator is asking you to use that to help people. So that's what she does, is she helps people, in the community, and people sometimes ask her if they could help them because they have different problems. So this family asked for her help, and that's why she went there.
But the funny thing was that she wasn't really helping the person; she was helping the, the ghost, the crossover. That's the
Maybe,
irony.
but I think it helped the family because they were kind of scared, like they didn't know what
What
was
like was the
going on.
ghost? What was the ghost? Was he malicious?
I don't think it was malicious. Like she didn't go into those details, but I gather that there were a lot of strange things happening in the house that scared them, and it's like, and they knew that there was probably a ghost, a quote unquote, what we call a ghost, in the house, because of these strange things going on, like doors opening without anyone opening them, and cabinets opening, and like, and it's, let's say it's at night, and you hear these footsteps in the hallway, and that it's not a
Maybe,
person's
maybe,
footsteps.
maybe it was a raccoon on the roof or something.
Well, I think that they had an actual spirit that was trapped, according to grandmother Wintune. Again, this was a
Mm,
story that I heard,
mhm.
and I believed her because
So
she's
she's a
just
medicine
so
woman
down to
slash.
earth, like she was
So
just
so
such a common sense person. Like she
so
wasn't
so,
like a,
so she was a medicine woman slash Ghostbuster.
I guess I don't think she would call herself that. And also, I don't think the Lakota people would call her that. And she wasn't Lakota either. She was from a different tribe in Alaska, but anyways, not getting into the cultural part of it, I believed her stories because she was just a common sense person, and also like she didn't really have a reason to tell stories that were untruthful. Like a lot of people who make up ghost stories, they're trying to get you to go to their Airbnb, or let's say they have a book they want to sell you, or they're trying to sell something. That really wasn't what she was doing. Like a lot of medicine people, they don't really get paid, money, although people do host them and give them things like baskets or objects they might use in their work, wooden things, because my experience of the tribe I was spending time with is they use a lot of like baskets and wooden objects. And like when we went into the sweat lodge, you're not allowed to have any metal or anything like that, only just wooden things in the sweat lodge. So that was kind of an interesting part of their ceremony. Yeah. But anyway, what about you, Kanish? Do you have a story, a ghost story? I know
I
you
do.
like ghost stories.
I do.
Kanish loves ghost stories.
What what did she make to the little girl?
I don't know what food she made. She didn't, I should have asked her, to be honest. I
Yeah,
was kind of like,
I mean, maybe she
I
made
wish
some
you were with
enchiladas.
me. I wish
Maybe
you
some,
were
maybe,
with me because you would have asked, but I didn't think
yeah.
of asking.
Weren't you curious? Like, I would have a bunch of questions. Like,
I think I was a little shy because she was so cool,
why?
and everyone was so
She's a
excited
human
that she
being.
was there. And I just
She's a
felt like
human being.
uncomfortable asking a bunch of questions, but I should have asked. You're right. I wish I had asked.
There's a lot of questions I would ask her. Like what food did she make her? Like, was she able to physically see her? Did she have some type of communication with
I
her? I mean,
know
there's
that
so
she
many
could
questions.
see her. She could actually physically see her. She saw the little
Yeah.
girl.
Did she ask her to sit down and have a conversation with her?
I didn't ask her that, like I think she just asked the little girl, like
So she could.
she
So okay,
just straight
okay.
up
So
asked
so
her,
she
like,
could.
what are you
So
doing
she could.
here?
So
You
she
don't
could.
belong here.
So she could see her. Could she hear her? Because you
Yes.
said that
Yes,
she could.
she could
So
see and she could hear her.
so they could have a conversation basically.
Yes. I don't think that look, I don't know because it isn't my story, but my understanding is that spirits don't speak like we do, like
Yeah, that's what I was
it's like you
thinking.
hear a voice, but it's in your head, like it's not like someone talking or something. You hear the voice in your head. And if someone who has the ability to hear and see the medicine, they call it like their medicine, their gifts, you know, like, but she didn't say that to me. That's just something that I think, having like
Oh, so
read other
you're
stories and
thinking,
stuff like that. But
so you're
but I didn't
thinking,
ask her, you know, like I was
oh,
saying, I didn't ask a lot of questions because I didn't want to
so
interrupt, and it wasn't
I
my
see.
event, and I just didn't feel, I felt a little shy to ask her a bunch of questions, you know.
So you're thinking that she was communicating with her, but in reality, you don't know if she was communicating with her.
No, she said that the way she told the story is that she talked to the little girl.
Yeah,
She asked
okay.
her
I'm
what she
saying
was
she's
doing there,
okay.
and the little
I
girl
heard you
told
that.
her that
Okay,
the
so
reason why she was there is because of her mother's tears, her mother's pain. And that the little girl could hear her mother crying, and she could
did you
feel her
ask him?
mother's pain. And when she turned around to look back while she was crossing over, she saw something that she thought was her mother's tears, but it was like these crystal things on the woman's dresser or something, because the little girl was trapped in a house that wasn't her house, you know? So, but she looked back and saw something on the dresser that she thought was like her mother's tears or something. And then she
So
got
that
stuck in that house. She got trapped in that house. That was
because she
what
saw her
she
mother's
told us. The
tears?
little girl told her.
Because she saw her mother's tears?
Yes.
So she saw
Well, the first thing is that the little girl, while she was crossing over, she heard her mother crying, and she could feel her mother's pain. And as she was crossing over, she turned around and looked back and saw something that looked like her mother's tears. And she was drawn to it, like it drew her to it, and she got stuck there. And grandmother told us it was something, these crystal something, I don't remember what, but something crystal
crystals.
that was on the woman's dresser in the
You
house,
know,
that
you
there
know, it's
was
funny.
something about that she thought it was her mother's tears, and it drew her to it or something. So she
So
got
so she
stuck there.
so she was walking the street and suddenly she saw like some crystals inside a house, and then she said, "Okay, I'm gonna go there because they look like my mother's tears."
Again,
What
I
happened?
didn't ask the kind of questions you're asking, but my
Mm,
impression is that she was crossing over. And I don't know that when a spirit crosses over, like when you die and you go beyond, I'm not
mhm.
sure that it involves walking in the street, you know, like I think she
Well,
was
I
crossing
mean,
over. Like I think her spirit left her body and she was moving beyond, but then her mother's pain pulled her back. And then when she saw these crystal things, she
oh, so
thought
her
it was
mom,
her mother's tears, and she got
so her,
trapped there, you know, like she
so
got
her
trapped.
mom, so you're saying her mom was still alive when she died?
Yes. Yes.
Ah, I see. Yeah, because I didn't understand what you. I thought her mom had died.
Oh yeah, no. So the little girl died, and while she was crossing over, while she was like, she, you
You
know,
asked?
her
Did you
body
ask her?
died, and she was crossing over to the beyond, whatever is beyond. And she felt her mother's pain, and she heard her mother crying, and it caused her to pull back, to, you know. And then when she looked, she saw something, and she thought it was her mother's tears. So she was drawn to that. And grandmother said it was like something crystal. I forgot what, but something crystal on the woman's dresser. And she got trapped there in that family's house because of it. That's what grandmother told us anyway.
Maybe she was
And that
using
she was
crystal.
able to help the little girl cross over by making her favorite food and telling her to follow the scent, and it would take her
That's
where
funny.
she belonged. And she did.
Maybe she was using crystal meth. So,
I don't
did you?
know. I wish you had been there with
It's
me,
hilarious.
because
It's a funny
you would have
story.
had the
Sorry.
courage to ask all these
I'm
great
sorry.
questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like my other question is like, why that house? I mean, did the mother live in that house? Do you understand?
I didn't
Why
ask again, you know, like I didn't ask grandmother, but I got the impression that it was not the same house, that
that's
she had
weird. Like,
somehow been drawn by these crystal. I think it was a house that was again, like I don't know, because I didn't ask, but when she was telling the story, I thought it sounded like it was a different house that was close by or something. And she had
Oh,
been
so
drawn in by these crystal things because a lot of people think that crystal has a certain like energy or something.
how do you know that? Maybe I can have some
Grandmother
crystals. I
didn't
can get
say
some
that.
ghosts.
Like, grandmother didn't
Oh,
say that, and she didn't go into a lot of detail about it. She just said the little girl was drawn to these crystal things. She thought it was her mother's tears because she could
yeah.
feel and hear her mother crying, you know?
Maybe it's a myth. I think it sounds like a myth. Some people like
I don't
say
think
like,
so. I don't think
well, you were
if you were
mentioning in the
there, you
beginning of
wouldn't
this.
believe that it was a myth. I believe
Well, I
grandmother.
mean,
She
there's
was
a
a
lot of
very
gaps.
authentic person. She was
That's
not trying
true.
to sell anybody anything.
I'm not. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the story you're saying is there's a lot of gaps. Maybe because you didn't ask those questions, but there's a lot of gaps. Anyways, my other
Well, I
question to
think
you.
that's true because I didn't ask a bunch of questions, you know.
Yeah,
And I
I
don't
would be
think
asking a ton of
like I
questions
don't think
because,
it was a made up story. I just think
well, it sounds like a
I
made up
just think
story.
I would be able to tell you the story better if I had actually asked all those questions or if you were there.
Yeah, yeah, I
I
definitely
believe
because I'm
with my
curious.
whole
I'm
heart.
very.
Like I
I'm a very.
truly believe it was a true story.
I know,
There's
but
nothing
you're very
about
gullible. But
there's
you're very
nothing about
gullible,
this
Moot.
woman that was like this woman was extremely authentic, you know, like
I get it,
no
Moot.
way
I
do I
get it.
think she would ever
I
make up
get
a
it.
story.
But also, also the. I mean, I love the American Indians. I'm an American Indian, uh, but there's also a lot of myths, a lot of legends that go with stories in American Indian. And maybe it's a myth. Maybe the little girl like pizza. Maybe she made a pizza. Little kids like pizza. Maybe it's pepperoni pizza. Who knows, right? Uh,
Oh, yeah, it
but
definitely could have been pizza, but I don't know.
exactly. Who knows? I mean, maybe it could have been chicken nuggets. Who knows? I mean, little kids like chicken nuggets. But another question to you is like, well, to Grandma Love is, uh, what was she communicating in what language? I mean, like, what if the little girl was Mexican? What if she only spoke Spanish? I mean, I'm serious. Like, does mother,
I know. I think you're
like,
asking really good questions, Kanish. I wish you
like,
had been there with
what, like, for instance, like, when I was a little kid, I didn't know any English. Like, if I would have died, there is no way, I would be able to communicate with grandma, with grandma. I don't know her last name is, but with grandma, you know, I wouldn't because we wouldn't be able to understand each other. I spoke Hebrew before I spoke English, so it's interesting. It's interesting. All this, there's a lot of gaps into your story. You know what I mean? And so you're saying a story that didn't happen to you. And perhaps to me, it sounds more like
True.
a myth, like a
True.
myth.
I understand that.
So,
I wish you had been there because I think you would have
yeah,
I
but
think
you have to,
like
but
when you hear a story from
most
someone
people,
who's
our
very
audience has to
credible.
understand that, yeah, I'm a very curious person. I love asking questions so I'm an auditor and I have to ask really tough questions because I want to make sure that there's that everything they're doing because I don't trust the people's words until I see the data and the data basically the data basically speaks the truth. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would have asked more questions because there's a lot of gaps in your story, and so like how old was the little girl? Was she a little girl like 3 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old? You know what I mean? It makes a big difference. You know what I mean? Because the understanding of a toddler, of a even a teenager, she was older, so I'm assuming a little girl for her can maybe even be a 12-year-old. You know what I mean? Who knows? Is a 12-year-old moving, opening cabinets? Can she even reach the cabinet? I mean, it's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Um, do I think would I consider this a true story? Probably not, but I get it. It's a cute story. I like the idea of the food. It's, maybe the pizza or maybe a hamburger. Little kids love hamburgers. Or maybe some little kids like chicken nuggets. Or perhaps she made something like American Indians like. I don't know. Was the family Indian, or was it American Indian, or was the family like African American, or was their family white? Who knows? You know what I mean? Were they Mexican? I don't know. You there? I think I lost
Yeah, I'm here. You're asking a lot of great questions. Unfortunately, I don't know how to answer them.
Maybe we can play
So
the Ouija board. Maybe we can play the Ouija board and we can find out. We can
we
contact
could.
Mother
And I think that you would be a
Mother
very
Winthrop.
good, I think you would be a very good person to go ghost hunting with, because you have a way of getting down to the brass tacks with all your questions. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Whereas sometimes I just accept things at face value. You have a
Yeah,
really good way of like asking
I'm very
all the right
curious. Yeah.
questions to get to the heart of everything. You know what I mean?
You just have to be like on like you basically have to live in the moment. You know what I mean? Like live in the moment and just picture yourself being there in the room and live in the moment. Like look at all the details. Like look at every detail you see and how I mean, because some people say that, I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but some people say that the temperature of a room lowers. I don't know how many degrees, but they say people say that the temperature lowers by 5 degrees. Okay, they just say like it's 72 degrees, it goes to 65. You know what I mean? And that's a big change. You can feel it. You know, and I don't know. You could have asked Mother Winthrop, or well, I don't know her name, a Scarecrow. I don't know her name, but uh, you can ask her, hey, did you feel any temperature decrease? You know, or were you, how did it look? What was it, like energy? Was it a bright light? Or the spirit, the bright light? Was it an orb? Was it a physical, you know what I mean? Could you touch could you touch the little girl?
Yeah.
What was she
Wait,
wearing?
can I tell you another story?
Sure.
So, another ghost story that I personally have, although you might be skeptical it's a ghost story, is so there's this place in Northern California called Medicine Lake. It's like a really, really amazing place. It has like, well, first of all, it has a lake, and then around it, it has this place, Glass Mountain, which is covered with obsidian, which is a very beautiful volcanic glass. And then it has like all these caves that you can go spelunking in. You can actually check out flashlights and you can actually go spelunking in these caves.
What's
And
luncheon?
spelunking is when you go exploring caves. It's kind of like hiking caves, basically. I'm sure you've probably done it before, right? Where you go with a bunch of friends and explore different caves that exist.
Uh-huh. It's
And
boring.
so yeah, so well, I went one time with my family, like we all met up, and I went to this one of these caves, and I think it was called the Mayfield Ice Cave. And so, well, I'll read this about you. It says like, while hunting some cattle which had strayed, Abbott returned from Southern Oregon, or I guess this isn't, I guess that isn't the best article. Here's a better summary. There's a lava fracture that leads to a crack opening in what's called the Mayfield Ice Cave, which is a series of entrances that form on the edge of a lava flow that stem from the Medicine Lake volcano. And the caves were discovered in 1873 by Mayfield, who was looking for cattle that he lost. And there's actually these really long ladders that go down into a small room that's really cold. And I think maybe that's where the ice aspect of it is. And so I think there's been stories of like people being stuck down there or injured down there or something like that, but I don't know exactly what they are. I tried to Google it just now, but it's hard to find anything. But anyways, I went down into this cave with a group, like there was actually like a little tour guide, and they took us down into the cave because it's kind of a little dangerous because it has these ladders in it. that you have to go down. And it was cool, you know, it was kind of cool. And then the group left, and I was kind of there in that ice cave by myself, and everybody was going up the ladder, and they all kind of left. And I stayed back because I thought it was a really neat place. And as I was standing there, I got this really, really weird feeling like somebody was watching me. And the hairs on the back of my neck literally stood up. And I looked over in the corner of the cave, and I just had this really negative feeling that somebody was there watching me. And I was like, oh my God. And then I got this impression that like someone had fallen down in the cave and died in there. Now, I don't know if that's true. I just got the feeling, you know, that someone had died in that cave and not in a good way. And then I was like, as soon as I looked in the corner and almost like validated that something was watching me, I felt this really intense, like, oh my God. And then I was like, I got to get out of here, because it didn't feel positive. It felt negative. Like it felt kind of negative. And it felt like when I acknowledged it, it was like somebody actually sees me. You know, that was the kind of feeling I got. Like, and then I was like, holy shit, I got to get out of this place. And I just got out of there as fast as I could possibly go, up a really super long ladder out of there. And that was one experience where, even though I didn't see anything, like grandmother Wintun was saying she could see the ghosts, you know, or the spirits. I didn't see the spirit, but I felt it. I felt like it was like a male that was watching me, you know, like, and that was kind of in a negative frame of mind, like a negative space. And so anyway, that's my one kind of like ghost story. Do you have any, Kanish? Do you have any ghost stories?
Yeah, I have a question. Now, since it happened to you, I have questions to you.
No, don't ask me any questions, you know. Don't ask me any questions.
So, but I think you have a better ghost story to tell, the one you told me that happened. But I will ask you questions about this. Like, so you just felt it. You never saw anything, right? And it was in the back of your, on the back, right?
I had this very strong feeling that somebody was watching me, and it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Like it was like
Like,
somebody's watching
were,
me, you know, like
were they watching
intently.
you? Were they watching you far away, close by, nearby,
That
or were
somebody
they
was
like
watching me intently. Well, when you're in the
behind
ice
you?
cave, like when you're in the ice cave at the bottom, there's all these different rocks and everything, and you can kind of look up around you. And it was in the corner of the cave where I was, and it was a little distance away from me. And I just had this
Oh,
strong feeling that somebody was watching me, and that it felt like it was a man that was like watching me. And it felt
wow.
kind of like negative, you know, like it was almost like someone who was stuck there a long time and was kind of bitter about it. That was the feeling I got, like someone had died down there and was stuck there for a long time and was really bitter about it.
Well, of course, if I was
And
there for a
that
long
they
time,
were
I would
kind of
probably be bitter
sitting in
too.
a corner like a bitter man that was upset. And then he was just watching me.
Why didn't you
As
try to
soon
help
as
him?
I looked over in the corner and it was like someone's watching me, it just felt like boom, like this big, huge energy. And it felt like this man was like, oh, this person actually sees me, you know? And I was like,
So
oh my
you
God. I
wait.
got really
If
scared, you know? And I was like, I
yeah,
have to get out of here right now. Like, I have to, because remember, I was in there all by myself, and it's a cave, it's an ice cave, and it's very dark. We did have little flashlights, you know, but it's a very dark cave at the end of this long ladder that goes down into the earth, you know, like, and I was there all by myself, like the whole group had left, you know, and I was like, I got to get the hell out of here now. Like it was like, oh my God, like I felt like because I had seen, or because I knew that there was someone there, and like he knew that I saw him, I felt like I was in trouble, you know, like, oh my God. Like,
how did you know it was a man? I mean, what made you think he was a man?
I just felt it, like it's hard to explain,
Yeah.
like if it was like a person with a body, you kind of feel it, you know what I mean? Like you
Well,
feel
it's a spirit, right? It's supposed to be a
masculine,
spirit.
feminine. Yeah, right. It's hard to explain, but it felt
Yeah.
very much like a male energy, like a male.
Yeah. I
And
don't
it
know. I
felt
can't
like
tell.
he was very bitter, and I had the
Yeah.
impression that he may have like died down there and was bitter about it, was very bitter about it. That was my impression.
Like he
But
was
it was
upset that he
scary.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Well,
was
you should have put a.
negative. It was negative. It wasn't like, in fact, I think a lot of spirits are negative because I have the impression, without having a ton of experience, that they're probably stuck here or trapped here for some reason, like there's a
Yeah.
reason why they're stuck here and they couldn't cross over. And the reasons are often negative, you know what I mean? Like, at least that's my own opinion without being a real expert at it. But what do you
Yeah.
think?
So
Like, what do you
yeah.
think?
So what I think is that did you ask the once you got back to I guess to the guide, did you ask the guide, hey, has anybody ever reported anybody like seen a ghost or anything?
No, I didn't say anything
Why?
because I think it's hard
Because
to
you were
talk
shy.
about stuff like that, like,
Because you were
because
shy
I
again.
just had an experience that in which I was really certain that there was like kind of like I don't want to say a bad spirit, more like a bitter spirit, like, because I don't know
Well,
if
see,
the person was bad or not, or the ghost was
yeah, of
bad or not.
course.
But it was a
But the
negative
guide,
vibe, and it's like,
but
and when you have quote unquote like paranormal experience like that, it's kind of hard to talk about it afterwards because you feel like people will be so skeptical or whatever.
well, if the guide, I'm sure the guide has gone there by himself, and I'm sure he has. If you say that the spirit is there, I'm sure he has felt it, and it's not something like that you can't really like avoid. It's there. You know what I mean? And so if you go there, I guess by yourself, you will feel it, like it or not, one in it or not. And so you could probably talk about it. Maybe you could have found out answers. You say, hey, I was there by myself. Have you ever felt some type, like people watching you while you were there by yourself? And the guy goes, yeah, I kind of do. Then you can probably ask him, hey, has anybody like died there? I don't know. That's what I would have done.
Yeah,
Either.
I wish you were with me because I think you would be an amazing ghost hunter or spirit chaser or whatever. I think there's actually people who do this for a living now. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But I
I'm not.
think that you would be a really good one because, again, you ask all the right questions, like you have a way, kind of like Grandmother Wintoon, like you have a way of cutting to the chase. Like, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. You know what I mean? Whereas the way that I addressed it was like, oh my God, there's somebody in this cave. I gotta get out of here. It was more like, oh shoot, I gotta get out of here, like, so I
Yeah.
think it would have
And,
been
and,
good if you were with me.
and it's funny how her name Wind. It's in English. It's not even in I guess in her native language. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know if I should say her name, because they called her a nickname, but that was the name. But anyways, it is actually kind of in her native language, the way it's spelled, but maybe it doesn't sound that way.
Yeah, it sounds like a wind tune.
Yeah, that's not how
uh,
it's spelled. That's not at all how it's spelled.
oh, okay, okay,
But
okay,
anyway,
okay.
I don't want to talk too much about who she is because I don't really, because she was a really great person, and very
Yeah,
authentic, and I just want to keep that sacred, if you know what I mean.
yeah, I do. And so when you were in the cave, did you see any like light, like because they say that spirits emit energy, right? Did you see any like light or anything, any type of like? Did it make any sound? Did it move anything? I mean, because caves, you can hear the echo. I don't know if you know that. they're very good to, especially if you're by yourself.
Yeah, I remember that it was cold. Like, and the ladder went down, and they also had some bars over some sections of the cave that were dangerous because they didn't want people going there. I remember that. And I just remember, like, I kind of wanted to stay there when everyone left because I thought it was kind of a cool place, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool to just like be here and be like in this space without all
Did
these
you?
people. Unfortunately, like, I didn't realize, like, and that's when everyone, and that's when the story starts. But it was a cool cave, and it was a really cool experience going down the ladder into this cave and everything. But I
Maybe you can
definitely
put it.
felt the presence of someone there, and it was pretty strong.
Maybe you can put in description the name of the cave. Maybe some of the audience might go and check it out.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And maybe
I might,
someone's
I
already
might,
been there, right?
yeah, exactly. I might even check it out. I've never been to that cave, and I might go check it out because I like doing things that you've already done. And so that's maybe one of my bucket lists.
Yeah, there are a ton of caves near Medicine Lake and also Glass Mountain. I think you would really appreciate the Glass Mountain, the obsidian there. And there's a ton of caves there. It's so much fun because you can go to the visitor center and check out a flashlight and a map, and you can
Yeah.
spend the whole day just exploring all the different caves. It's a really cool
So
place.
so where I live. There's also a lot of caves. Most people don't know that, but there's a lot of caves where I live. Natural caves, but no, there's no ghosts where I live, unfortunately. And not that not from like that people have talked about. But I was gonna ask you, so you did not see any light when you were, because you said it was dark. You didn't see any immediate light?
I didn't. I had a little flashlight, and I did have my flashlight on, so it wasn't pitch black dark. In one of the other caves, not the ice cave, I did turn my flashlight off. Like, that was another thing I did because I was with a group, and I like to be like when everyone leaves, because then you can really you're not distracted by people talking and stuff. You can really kind of absorb where you are. So in another cave, it wasn't this one. I did, like, everyone left, and I turned my flashlight off because I wanted to feel like what it would be like to be in total darkness. And when you're in a cave, it's a different kind of darkness. It is like total darkness. There is no light whatsoever coming in. And that was a really cool experience, to be honest. And I stayed there as long as I could before someone was calling my name, and I was like, darn, I have to go. Because I would have loved to have just stayed there for like 30 minutes and just been quiet, like kind of meditative in a place that's like completely dark like that. It was really cool. But I did not do that in the ice cave because like I said, I just had this feeling that somebody was watching me, and I definitely wasn't going to turn my flashlight off when that happened, because it was not a good feeling. It wasn't like someone good was watching me. It was like a feeling that just made the hairs stand up on the back of my neck. It was like somebody's watching me, and I don't think they're alive, like it was just that whole sensation. But anyway, so I have
How
one
old
more
were you?
story that
How old were you?
grandmother told us.
Wait, how old were you?
It was a few years ago. I'm an adult, not a child, definitely.
Okay, and do you know the similarity between your story and Mother Winthrop's story
No. What's
is
the
that
similarity?
I don't know if you noticed, but the ice creates crystals.
Oh, interesting.
Did you know
That's
that?
cool. I didn't think about that, but that is actually true. You mean like in the caves, the
Yeah,
stalagmites and stuff like that. That's cool.
it's,
That's an
it's
interesting connection.
maybe both of you guys were using crystal meth. I don't know who the heck
Yeah.
knows, man.
I have another story, grandmother's story. Be nice when I tell this story because I know you're gonna have so many
No,
questions I'm not gonna be able to answer.
no. You should tell the story. Moot. You should tell the story you told me about. You should tell the story that you told me. That
So
was really
yeah,
interesting.
so this is my second story of the grandmother's story. So she had a similar thing where she was asked by this family to come and help them because they thought they had a spirit in their house. And it's like, but they didn't really, this family was a little different because they didn't really want help. They kind of thought it was cool. And what they really, like, they kind of thought it was cool that they had a quote unquote ghost in their house. And what they really wanted was for grandmother to tell them the story about it so they could like figure out like what is the ghost, just to add to their whole ghost story. And so she went over to help them, and they showed her to the area in the house that was having a lot of activity. And when she went in, she saw this man, and this was a Native American family, and the man was talking to her in a different language, she said. And he was saying some of the worst things. She wouldn't tell us what he said, but she said they were very nasty and very bad, what he was saying. And she told this family, she was like, this is not a nice spirit, you know, like this is not a good spirit. And she offered to help them, like to help them, like, I don't want to say get rid of the spirit, but to get it to a place where the spirit would get out of there, would leave and cross over and leave the house. But they didn't want her to do it because the family thought it was cool that they had a ghost in their house and they could talk to their friends about it. And then when people stayed with them, they experienced that the ghost, you know, the paranormal things happening in the house. So they didn't actually want her to get rid of the ghost. And even though she tried to tell them that it was not a good spirit, so she ended up doing some kind of ceremony for them that would keep the ghost in a certain area of the house. Like she did, I don't know exactly what the ceremony was, but she did a ceremony to try to contain the ghost, you know, like the spirit, and using a Native American ceremony. And then she left, you know, unfortunately. But I thought that was an interesting story too, because it was very different than like seeing a little girl who had trouble crossing over. This was the case of like a spirit that was very angry and that was saying a lot of bad things. I'm assuming in a Native American dialect or language. I'm assuming. But again, I didn't ask her a ton of questions, you know, I just kind of listened to the story, you know.
Man, all I can say is like God love all, but like my first question to her would be maybe that ghost didn't want her because you know some dogs are very protective. There's different kinds of breeds, and I growing up I had a German Shepherd, and the German Shepherd was extremely nice to me. I mean, it would protect me. I mean, I think it would because it was my dog. I was his master, and that dog growing up, you know, would protect me. But if one of my friends would come over, a friend that hadn't been in my house, it would become vicious. Like it would turn to like another, like an animal. You know what I mean? So maybe that's what the ghost was doing. It had never seen Mother Winthrop, you know, and so once Mother Winthrop went into the house, it was like, hey, what the heck are you doing in my house? This is my house. This is my family. Don't mess with my family.
Yeah.
You know? And so who knows? I mean, maybe Mother Winthrop misunderstood the ghost. Maybe you could have asked her about that. What did he say? Like, did he say, "Do not come to my house"? Did he say like in a very rude way? Did he say, "Hey"? Was he talking vulgar? And sometimes, you know,
Yes.
maybe some, you know, like sometimes like people who don't have a lot of who have a very limited language, like not a lot of words. I mean, sometimes they speak with the only words they know, and sometimes those words are cussing words. And so maybe that's all he knew, cussing words, and
You're
maybe
being
he didn't.
very generous to this ghost. Well,
No,
I will
I'm
I
trying to
will
see, I'm trying to see why Mother Winthrop, why would Mother Winthrop think that Ghost was an evil ghost? Because now I'm going to put it into Mother Winthrop's point of view. I mean, Mother Winthrop goes there because she's trying to be